Well, my friends, it's just in time for us to start. Oh, my wonderful friend, Octave, very good brother, regular member of this show. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll start shortly. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of the Speaker's Pulse. Again, welcome back. It's been such a long time. We last had a conversation in December, at the beginning of December, where we talked a lot about leadership, about communication. And now we are back to talk more about leadership and in a much more relevant perspective. Again, if you're visiting for the very first time, this is the Speaker's Pass, where we talk about matters that around public speaking and leadership. And we like to say that this is where public speaking matters, or we try to talk about things that are important to us as we create opportunities, as we create doors and opportunities for us to A, learn about public speaking, B, learn about communication, and C, voice our opinions about the matters at hand. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have yet another interesting conversation, and we will be talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, but in a different perspective. Many are the things that have been said about COVID-19, how horrible it has been. We all agree it has caused so much pain, so much loss, and it has come with so much grief and many other changes in our lives that we do not anticipate. But ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We could as well just face it and say, could there be any lessons? Could there be any opportunities for us to say as leaders, as leadership enthusiasts, could there be any good lessons that we can learn about leadership given the situation that we are in? Well, as usual, I have always promised you to bring you only the best. I have two of my great friends. One, Eric Mureithi, hailing all the way from Nairobi, very close to the coast, not necessarily at the coast though, but really close to the coast. And a good friend of mine, Martha Mwiza, who is also hailing from the land of 1,000 hills, just like we like to say. Now, my friends, because we are about to set off, it's important for us to get to know who it is, to know each other before we can actually set off. To begin with, let's begin from nearby. Yeah, the land of 1,000 hills. Martha Mwiza Birungi. Martha is I've always say a self-made public speaker, leadership enthusiast, and those of you that know Mwiza, you know her passion for service, you know her passion for leadership, and her consistency in always showing up when there's a need to support fellow human beings, especially young people. You know that she is an enthusiastic servant, and therefore that makes her a leader. As you all like to say, servant leadership is a new tool. Then you will definitely learn or enjoy to learn that Martha is indeed a servant leader. I know Martha in different spheres, but you all know that professionally she is a business analyst. And in her other life of leadership, I have known her to be part of many youth groups. And currently, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me so much joy to tell you that she's working with a group of young adults to forge life, to understand the true meaning of life in its truest sense. So Martha is definitely a go-to person when it comes to leadership. Of course, in the house as well, we have my very good friend, my leader, my Toastmaster friend, one inspiring gentleman from Kenya, like I mentioned. He's currently serving at the Toastmasters, the East African Toastmasters district, where it brings about 5 countries. And Eric Mureithi is serving as a division director. Now, under his leadership, he is foreseeing over 350 members in East Africa, ensuring that their growth, ensuring that they get to gain leadership skills and communication skills, of course, with his team. It is such an honor to have both of you, my friends, to talk about leadership, because who better to talk about leadership than you folks who are currently doing amazing stuff as leaders, but also I know both of you as public speaking and leadership trainers. You help other people understand, you demystify the difficult concepts of leadership. And then you happen to be alive. Both of you are alive in this pandemic situation. And therefore, I believe that that qualifies you, my friends, to talk about the topic today. How can we learn from this situation that we are in of the COVID-19 pandemic? And not only learning in general, but what leadership lessons can we gain or can we get from this situation that we are in? We'll start off on listening to our wonderful panelists as we try to break down the theme that we have tonight. But like I mentioned, it's important to recognize the number of you that are watching. I can see my wonderful friend Rachel. Thank you so much for being part of this show. Please invite other friends that you think will love this conversation. And if you're part of the people that are watching, please feel free to leave a comment or simply say hi so we can know that you're taking this journey with us. Well, maybe we just begin by knowing who our panelists are in a much deeper. So I don't believe that I've done any justice to who you are. So I begin with you, Eric. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and how your leadership journey began?
Well, thank you, Joshua. It's such a privilege to be here in the Speaker's Pulse this Sunday evening. Let me tell you, I think one thing that COVID has taken away from me is the opportunity to be more in Rwanda, because my current role in Toastmasters gives me opportunity and even an allowance to travel to Rwanda, but I can't do that right now. And I feel really sad. But thank you, Joshua, for getting me to Rwanda anyway, virtually. I don't know if I want to speak before the lady, though, Joshua. As a leader, I want the lady to go first, because I also want to come across as a gentleman. And, there's many reasons I want to be in Rwanda. I just might get a good lady. So let me start by treating the ones that I am getting in contact with well. So I recommend that the lady goes first. Then I'll be happy to come after her. Martha.
You're a smart man, Eric. You're a very smart man.
Very smart. I'm very happy with you. You like to say that leaders eat last. So Martha, please do us the honors of beginning.
Wow. Okay. So how do I start? So the honors is to talk about what we do, right, and kind of describe ourselves and what we do, right?
Maybe before we even talk about what you do, maybe how your leadership journey began, and maybe when you think it began and how it began, and then we can talk a bit about the amazing work that you're doing.
I actually think leadership picked me. It sounds really, really arrogant, but from a very young age, I stood out, not in the way that you think, but in the way that when I was younger, as far back as nursery school, I was the tallest in my class. And I don't know about you, but sometimes teachers tend to think like the tallest kid is definitely going to make the best leader. And so I remember being picked on to become a class monitor by my teacher in nursery school. I remember that very vividly because I was the only kid sticking out, and somehow they decided that was enough criteria to make me leader. But that kind of propelled me on a journey because my first leadership role was as environment prefect in primary school. I remember it was primary 5, and I campaigned for a position. I don't know about you, but elections in Uganda, be it school or anywhere, are just fun, right? There's a lot of campaigning. There's a whole host of things that go on when you're selecting a leader. It's a big deal. And so I remember going against 14 people I don't know what happened. I had no money to buy sweets and bribe people, yet somehow they picked me out of 14 candidates. And I thought, there must be something there. And so from that, it was just several other occasions. But I think what has really characterized my leadership journey has been the many people that have believed in me, whether it's in my primary, people, class teacher who thought, I actually think that you have the potential, go ahead and apply for the position or the vacancy as a prefect, or my English teacher in senior decided that I was the person for the job to become head girl of my high school. Or it was just, my mentor who pushed me to take that difficult, maybe challenging job, which I didn't think I could do. And so I feel like it's been the people that I would say a thing that stood out in my leadership journey, that have come and walked alongside me, that have encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone. It doesn't seem very obvious, but I'm actually introverted in some ways. And so for me to actually decide to go and take up a leadership position, it takes a lot of deep work and thinking about it and actually becoming intentional and then stepping out, right? And so in a way, my leadership journey has been formed by people, but also it's been formed by the many challenges and the failures that I've had along the way. Unfortunately, I would like to think people like to hear the good stuff only, but I also think that the bad stuff is actually the very formative stuff. So the challenges that I've had along the way, the failures that I've had to learn from, have also formed my leadership journey. But I'm really glad that also my definition of leadership has morphed into a different version of it. From what it was when I started out to where I am today, it's very different, and I'm glad that it has had to go through all these different experiences. But I'm happy to discuss that further during the interview. But in a nutshell, I started very young, and I think it's just been a continuous process of growth and evolution.
Now, that's extremely encouraging to most of us that are thinking about a leader's born, a leader's made. Is it time? Does that make me a leader? Is it time for me to take on leadership positions? Am I perfect? Am I a perfect fit for? So thank you so much for sharing with us your journey and being a little bit vulnerable to tell us that everything has not been rosy as at least we would like to think. Well, Eric, as they normally say, we all get our chances. Over to you.
Thank you, Joshua. Listening, I'm happy I let Martha go first, because listening to Martha, I feel that I am like on the other side of the divide, which is good, because I think I want to encourage the other kind of person, because unlike Martha, I was not the tallest person. So all my life, I really was never a leader. I was never a class prefect, a class monitor. I never led anything. I'm a last born. So, my brothers and sisters spoke. And when it came to my time to speak, nothing. This guy has nothing to say. It's all right. So I really was okay not being anywhere being seen by anybody. In my primary school and high school, I was never a leader. And when I became a leader, I didn't become a leader through universally, those situations that you'd think, good place to be a leader. In fact, I'm hearing Martha speaking about how they used to campaign and, do all that. And that's interesting, in all the schools that I went to, you kind of were appointed, like how she was appointed on her features, tallest. That's how it was. You were appointed because of your features. But that said, you won't believe my first leadership opportunity. It was in a dance group. Can you imagine?
Nice.
It was not in school. It wasn't in a community setup. It wasn't in a church setup. It was in a dance group. So I was in this dance group. It was after high school, and I joined dance to just enjoy myself, have some fun. But now the dance group became a really good dance group and was being called for performances to other venues. So they needed someone to coordinate the logistics, somebody who gets transport and figures out how people will eat. I was that guy. So that's my first leadership position. I was kind of like an activities coordinator. And I didn't even think I was a leader. I was like, I'm just helping out with the dance group. So that's the first time I'm leading a group as an activities coordinator. But I did it so well, I became one of the principal dance leaders. I did that so well. When I went to university, I formed my own dance group. So I think I just became a circumstantial leader. You know how by default you find yourself, you've got to coordinate stuff. So I became what I call a circumstantial leader, because previously I was nowhere in leadership circles. But one thing that I probably do very well is I like to do everything with a spirit of excellence. So anything that I'm given, I'm those guys, traditionally, I'm reluctant. I won't volunteer to do anything. But if I am picked to do it, I'll do it very well. And that's what happened. Because of my excellent service delivery, it now put me in places where people now want me to come and lead. And even in Toastmasters, that's what it's been. I joined, but now in Toastmasters, it's also been intentional. I think at the place I am in my life right now, I intentionally lead now. I'm not reluctant, and it's not circumstantial. It's very intentional. But I think I'd want to say that I was not a traditionally, I didn't have those qualities and features that make me somebody that you'd select. But right now, because of intention, if I sit in a crowd, I most probably will be asked to lead into something. So I came from that place, and I want to encourage somebody who does not necessarily look at themselves as a leader. I want to encourage them that, just live your life, but if you get any opportunity to do anything, put your heart in it. It's not really about being a leader. It's about making a difference with the little you have because of a spirit of excellence. Back to you, Joshua.
Well, thank you so much. Again, another interesting perspective. When you just think that the worst has happened, then you have another interesting story of the likely to be called upon as a leader, and then there you are, and all that is history now. I look up to you as my leader, and as Adialon mentioned, and that also gives us so much hope, and maybe helps us define leadership as not about what you have now, but maybe about what you're willing to do. And as you mentioned, I love what you mentioned, doing everything with the spirit of excellence. And both of you have actually talked about this in a span of just a few minutes, and that tells you about leadership. That the job that we have, the job that lies upon us, is one of excellence among many. So thank you so much, Eric, for that witty journey of yours, that all the way from the dance floor to the podium, and intentionally seeking to do good through your leadership journey. Now, my friends, today we are talking about the obvious. I think it's hard to spend a day without talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot that has happened. There's a lot it's interesting how things can change within a span of days. And that's what happened to me when we all of a sudden had, before the lockdown in my country, we had COVID-19 as a China problem. And I was the least of the bothered, and I really went about business doing my own life. And I felt that was a problem. I didn't even know what COVID was. I just was not even interested in reading the news until it was on my doorstep, and I couldn't attend a Toastmasters meeting. I couldn't go to the neighbor. Where were you what do you remember, actually? Maybe let me put it. What do you remember about the lockdown, the first lockdown in your country? And what were you, where were you? Maybe that's not so relevant, but what do you remember, actually? What do you remember about the lockdown in your country when they announce and say, look, you cannot visit your neighbor?
Wow.
So, yeah. So just go back in the motions for us and just tell us what was going on, or how you even received it. Eric, do you want to go first this time? Because I am going to dictate the terms.
Yes, I can go fast now because I let the lady go fast on the other one.
Yeah, vindicated.
Joshua, to be really honest, and I think a virtue that a good leader should have is, as like you told Martha, you know, that vulnerability and honesty, because as a leader, you're also a human being. And sometimes you have a position that people idolize, and sometimes as leaders, we get lost in that position. We forget to tell people our human experience. And let me tell you about my human experience with COVID. COVID, I have a training business. So I'm always out there with an organization, teaching them. I love to do team building retreats, you know, going out to hotels and making people have a lot of fun, then throwing a party in the evening. And, you know, I also do soft skills training, communication, leadership, emotional intelligence, what have you. And all those happen in the context of events. Or rather, that's traditionally how that has happened. So at the wake of COVID, which was March for our country, Kenya, and it's interesting that you say that it was China's business. You know, we didn't care. You know, we heard about it and we were like, oh man, that's sad, but well, that's China. Then until it came to our doorstep. So all my bookings were canceled. And I'm also a corporate MC, and I do a few weddings in a year, maybe 2 or 3 weddings. So even the weddings that I had booked as an MC were cancelled. So I was completely out of a job. And you know, for a man, I don't know about Martha, but for man, you know, men are known as providers. And what happens when you can't provide? Does that make you a woman or less of a man or whatever it is? You know, so we've got to also define some of these situations define who we really are. Yes, I'm a man and I'm a provider, but when I can't provide, does that make me any less of a man? You know, a man ought to provide, but that should not define a man. And I think those are some of the things I learned, because I'd like to say that, you know, after a week or two, I innovated and I thought in different directions and I was back. That's not the reality. Let me tell you the truth. I was flat-footed for 7 months. Flat-footed. From March, the next time I had a job was in October. Right? And that's messy. That's completely messy, because you've lost an income, you've lost relevance, and I mean, you don't realize how much even just attending some of these social meetings, what it does to you. It gives you a sense of meaning and of purpose. And if you can't attend, I mean, you ask yourself, what am I here on earth for? What am I? And I know some people even got suicidal thoughts. So it was a complete, it just threw me flat-faced. I've had Les Brown saying that when you fall with your back so that you can look up. That sounds great, but that's not really how people fall. Most people fall flat-faced. Nothing like, you know, you can't fall. There's no technique of falling, you know. You can't fall cutely. You fall, it's a mess when you fall. And that's what it was for me. And man, that really threw me off balance. But something that I learned is, and I know we're coming into lessons, but what I learned is a break is a good thing. And sleep is not also a bad thing, you know? Sometimes you just need a break. I mean, I slept like I've never slept in my life. The last time I slept like that was in high school, you know? So I was flat-footed. It was messy, but it gave me opportunity to do 2 good things: to rest and to rethink. You don't know how much routine you have in your life until you stop. There's so many things you're doing. Wake up, eat breakfast, go to work, come back, sleep, eat breakfast, wake up, hustle, you know, and it's a routine. So you could be busy, but you're not productive. So COVID taught me to rest, to rethink. And you'd rather to do 2 things well than do 15 things that you're doing to just get busy and get by. So I right now I'm very comfortable with doing a few things that are effective than just doing things that people see you, you know, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. You look like you're doing stuff, but the reality is that you're busy but not productive. You're like on a treadmill. You're running, but you're not covering distance. So I think that's the thing I discovered during COVID, that everything I'm doing is great, but where is it taking me? And now I'm more intentional. You know, if I do one thing in a day that has a difference, I'm happy. I go to sleep knowing that was a productive day. But previously, I was just pushing things, knocking doors, hustling, doing what? So I think that's what it was for me. The key word here is it was a mess, but it gave me opportunity to rest and rethink. Back to you, Joshua.
Thank you so much. And out of your mess, today we have a message, right?
Wow.
Thank you so much, Eric, for again being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I believe a good number of our viewers can relate to your story, especially for those that were maybe entrepreneurs or depending on gatherings and so much of the like. Myself, I did at the time of my career as a corporate trainer was supposedly taking off, and then I had about 3 gigs lined up or 3 training opportunities, and I had the dreaded email. We are sorry, we cannot have this due to the pandemic, and that was rather messy, as you like to say. Martha, what is your message?
Wow. I mean, after Eric spoke, I was like, mic drop, you know, that's a beautiful message. I'm quite inspired actually. I mean, end of podcast. Good day. Yeah. My story is quite different. At the beginning of 2020, I had just moved back home from the UK where I just finished my master's, my MBA. And I had just come in, I think about 10 days before, um, actually, no, maybe not 10 days, maybe 20 days before 15 days, let's say, before they announced the lockdown in Kigali, I started a new job. I'd started a new job right off, you know, uni, and I was starting the job that I'm in right now. Actually, on Friday, I made a year actually in this job. And part of my job involved travel. And I'd worked up until then, I'd worked about a few days, maybe 10 days before my boss, who we have the company headquarters is in Cote d'Ivoire, Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. And he had called for me to actually be flown into Abidjan to actually go there for training for about 3 weeks, because that's kind of the initiation process for the company. And I thought, great idea. But right about that time, at the same time, they're saying, oh, COVID on the news, right? And I remember the Saturday I actually flew out of Kigali was the first day they announced a case of COVID in the country. And I had a hard conversation with my boss, who asked me, because at that very day, the situation had been declared a pandemic. And I had a hard conversation with my boss and my father about whether or not I should travel. And I thought to myself, you know, I don't know these people very well. The company is predominantly French speaking, and we do a lot of French speaking work in French speaking Africa. And I'm very Anglophone, as you can tell. And so I could, you know, I definitely wanted to meet the other team, you know, who I'll be working with for the rest of the year. And obviously getting to know my colleagues is part of, you know, joining a company and working together with them. And so I looked forward to the opportunity, and I thought, if I back down now, what would that say about me as, you know, a teammate and an employee? And I thought, okay, I mean, it's not that bad. I have my mask, I have my gloves, let's go. Took the flight out. I wouldn't say I was very scared. But then I get to Abidjan and everything is great. Nobody knows about the pandemic. Everybody's life is normal. And I remember I landed on a Sunday and I get into my apartment, get settled in, and the next day go out to work, still having my mask on, sanitizing every 5 seconds. And that same day after work, the president the president in Cote d'Ivoire announced on national television that schools were closed. And at that time, I was in the middle of a supermarket, French-speaking Africa, mind you, zero French, very little French, barely get by. And people flooded in, panic shopping. Everything was wiped clean. And I stood there paralyzed, not knowing what to do. Fortunately, one of my colleagues called me and had me taken to my apartment. The next day, my boss was like, okay, we need to think about you going back home. But we didn't really have anything conclusive. So I thought, okay, let's see how it pans out. Nothing complicated. About a day later, we get the announcement that they're going to close the border. And now everybody is scared, everybody's frantic. And my boss has to organize for me to get a flight out, which at the time was really hard because depending on the flight you were taking, not many flights were still flying, if you can imagine. And so what ended up happening was I kept moving. I kept wondering what's going to happen. And by the time the day got around, which was I couldn't get a flight out until I think the day before they closed the airport. And what ended up happening was once I got the flight, when I actually got to the airport, it was delayed about 4 hours, which meant it was very close to missing the deadline of getting into the country. But luckily, I was able to get back. But then when I get back home at the time, I had to deal with the anxiety of what if I actually carried COVID to my family. My mom and sister have underlying conditions, and if I so much as had anything on me, it wasn't so much about me, but I was staying with my mom and my sister and my entire family at the time, and having a situation where I carried COVID home, I couldn't live with myself. And so for weeks, I was very, very anxious. Mind you, I've started a new job, with a lot of assignments, with so many things that I need to deliver on, and dealing with the anxiety of, whether or not I had COVID. And to say that it was a very hard experience, maybe I wouldn't compare my situation to anybody else's, but I would say that it was very hard for me. And it really impacted how I delivered at work. I was constantly extremely self-aware, self-judgmental, and not my absolute best. And so I wasn't, it wasn't my very glorious moment. And like Eric said, I felt like I was flat on my back. Faith, actually, you're right. You cannot fall flat on your back. That's actually a very dangerous way to fall. But anyway, just to backtrack and talk about the fact that this was a very scary situation. And because I was the last person hired by the company, I then dealt with the anxiety of last hire, first to fire. So I wasn't sure whether or not I would keep my job because people were losing their jobs east-west. But I'm actually quite grateful that the company I work for, first and foremost, handled my entire remove from Abidjan to Kigali, in a pandemic very well. They followed up, and also they were quick to be very open and transparent with us as a team, and talking about why it was important for them to tell us that our jobs were still safe despite the situation. I thought that was a great a great leadership trait, especially from that transparency and that saying, look, this is the situation in the world, but we want you to know that this is how many months we have left, before we cannot be able to pay you, but we are making sure that your jobs are safe, and we're doing this to make sure that your jobs are safe. And so I actually want to acknowledge that, because for me, it was a great example of what leadership is, that openness, that transparency, especially at a time like that. And so, but one of the things that I learned at the time was, because of that fear and all the things that I was having to deal with at the time, the thing that helped me the most was taking one day at a time. I have this, personality where I want to know everything and have a lot of certainty about tomorrow. And as you can tell, the pandemic, everything evolved, day by day. You didn't know what was going to come next. You didn't know what was going to change the next day. Being confined and not having the option to go out and meet my friends was also a very hard thing to get over. And you're right, Eric, the physical events make a huge difference. And for me, a lot of my support system is with my friends. Not being able to meet with them and actually hear them, get that encouragement for them. Some of them had been working while I was away at school. And so I needed the pointers, but I didn't have that option. And it really put me in a very, very, very hard space. Those months, it felt like a year. It really felt like a year. I dealt with a lot. And the one thing that I would say I learned was to ask for help. Like I told you, I like to not know it all. Nobody likes to know it all, but deep down, I know that I want to be certain. I want to be confident. I don't ever want to feel like I don't know what I'm doing, right? And by virtue of that, I also often don't know how to ask for help. But that experience taught me that you're not an island. You're going to need people. You're going to need your family. You're going to need friends. It could be so much as taking a walk with one of your friends. And for me, that helped calm me down. It helped me get into community, and be open, be transparent, be vulnerable, and tell my friends that, look, I'm actually having anxious thoughts, and they're limiting my ability to deliver in my work. But I'm just letting you know because I need somebody to hold the space for me. And they did. And so the experience was a tough one, yes, but I'm quite grateful for the leadership that is within the company I currently work with. I saw and continue to see a lot of amazing people to look up to learn from. And I also learned a lot that I definitely want to take on as a leader going forward. How to treat people, how to manage crisis, and how to ask for help, as simple as that. And definitely rest is one of them, because I keep telling people that because of the pandemic, the lines between work and rest have been blurred, right? Before the pandemic, you knew you had to go to an office somewhere and you would do your work and go home. Sometimes even leave your computer at work. But now, your computer and your bed right next to each other. Don't know the difference. And so what that means is your schedule is all over the place, right? But at the same time, it's one of those things where you learn to say, okay, this is my space and I need to manage it well. I need to manage my time. I need to manage my energy. I need to manage all of this because they're all important. And so I would say I learned a lot from people, but also from myself, and also continue to learn. And hopefully what I've learned from the pandemic can inform my decisions as a leader going forward. Yeah, that's where I was.
Well, thank you so much, Martha. Again, these are two perspectives, Eric and Martha's perspective. One is employed, another is self-employed, and still we have a same trend, at least a global perspective to how our lives have been impacted. And the opportunity for you to also learn and appreciate leadership in this very dark moment is one that is amazing. And that's probably why we have these conversations. Again, I'd like to take a quick break and appreciate a number of you that are part of this conversation. Thank you so much, Claude, for being part of the conversation. Octave, I can see you're really encouraging ladies to share their own ideas. I have seen a couple of them also. Rachel, thank you so much for telling us. Earlier on, I posed the question that what was your first experience as a leader? And Rachel said that I was elected as a minister of gender at campus. I didn't know that I was able, but I did it the whole year. And then that's how I started my leadership journey. Excellent. I'm glad that you had the opportunity to serve and you even think you did very well. Thank you so much, Germain, again, for being part of this. Germain is another good friend of mine, again, from Toastmasters. There's a Tom Talent Recovery. He's saying, be blessed, you all. And we also have this friend, must be a really good friend of yours, Martha. Her name is Patty Najengwa. She says, yay, Martha, and 2 emojis of love, I like to say. Lovely emojis. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this conversation. If you're new in this place, feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, and we are on a marathon to reach 300 subscribers of this wonderful channel, so we can constantly share this information, because you never know, this information could be an amazing piece of information that helps someone to become better. Again, back to our conversation tonight. If you're just joining, we are asking ourselves, the pandemic was a big toll on our lives, but there be any lessons that we can learn? I love that Martha just shared with us a powerful message of how she began. It was just into a new environment, having to deal with a new situation, and here we get into a situation of the pandemic, and the conversation takes a different turn altogether. Far away from home, and by the time you come home, there's also so much to deal with. But then, because of leadership, everything seems better. Everything seems better. Now we have another situation. Eric earlier on told about how his personal consultancy business told, but out of that, he was able to learn a few nuggets about himself and his life, and that's it. Leadership is all about. I think Ayon, we did talk about it, continuously learning and becoming better. Now, specifically, Eric, looking at. We were talking about now as a follower or perhaps as an individual in the pandemic. Now, putting on your leadership hat, what could you say as a leader you have learned through this journey, through this pandemic? And you could say, maybe this pandemic was a blessing in disguise. Maybe this was what I needed to grow as a leader, or perhaps to learn so that I can be able to deal with the future crisis or anything that comes closer to it. So, Eric.
Joshua, I think I'm enjoying the conversation so far, and it's interesting how we're different, but we're similar. You know, I'm hearing Martha speak about experience in a different country. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can relate to that. You know, I'm hearing her, especially when she speaks about, you know, she had to find somebody that she can be honest with, you know. And that's a reality for me as well. From last year, I had to be honest. And I think I could start from there. That if all the people that you know as a leader are your fans, or the people that you guide, you're in trouble. You know, you need people. Of course, you need people who you look up to. People who look up to you. So there's people up there that you look up to. There's people down here who look up to you. Then you need the horizontal guys. You know, guys who you can tell, hey man, I'm losing it. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. I'm completely stressed. Because in a crisis, those kind of guys become a great source of emotional strength. And one thing I've not told you is that I have a twin sister. I'm a twin.
Nice.
Yes, and I thank God that over the years I've made her my friend. So, and she's in proper employment. She's employed by the government. You know, she's permanent and pensionable. And in the corona pandemic, those are the guys who are happy because, you know, their jobs are secured. People like us in business and consultancy, I mean, there's no guarantees. So one thing I did is I reached out to friends, especially my twin sister. I said, hey man, I'm stressed. I'm out of source of income, and I think I'm losing it. And then she listened to me. She's a good friend. And I have to say that she became a great source of support, emotional support, and even financial support. And the thing about a pandemic, I had a quote somewhere, I think it's in the Bible, that you don't prepare for battle in the day of war. So friendship that will come through for you is not a friendship that you're trying to activate on a rainy day. So I think one thing I've learned is the value of keeping the important things important. And one of the important things in life is family and friends. And if you chase a career and chase business and you get into this cutthroat market and you meet people like Joshua Tahinduka and you think, oh man, I have friends. No, you don't have friends. You just met acquaintances in the industry. You need to make real friendships right now. Because on a rainy day, corporate acquaintances will not come through. All right, that's when you realize those guys were acquaintances. They were not friends. You know, we like to go for cocktails and dinners and think that we are connected and networked. Those are not your friends. Those are just connections that you have in the industry, and they're good. And some of them can be translated into friendships. In fact, I'll give you another, because it's Sunday, I'll give you another nugget from the Bible. It says, whoever would like to have many friends must first of all show himself friendly. So I learned the importance of being a friend today and building meaningful friendships today. And do you know there are family members that are not friends? You could have brothers and sisters, but they might necessarily not be friends, because you've got to intentionally make them your friends. And those are the guys who are going to be beside you on your deathbed. So you really have got to invest in those guys. And one thing I'm grateful for is that I invested in quality family friendships and also quality, horizontal friendships, because I had people I could talk to. I had people who could support me. And that's because there was an investment that was done a while ago. So that's one of the things I learned from this pandemic, the importance of the important things. And business is not as important as family. A career is not as important as family. And if you remember that throughout your business and your career journey, it will help you even with business and career. And so that's the first thing. The second one is something I mentioned fleetingly. It's rest. I came up with so many good ideas last year because my mind was rested. Do you know you can't innovate with a mind that is full of things? It's like a cloudy mind. It just you think you have your cutting edge, but you don't, because you're just in the hustle. But there's something about rest, sleeping, things that I never used to do before last year was I never used to watch movies. I thought movies were a complete waste of time. I think I still think it's a waste of time. But but there's a place for rest. Rest is important. Rest is very important. I mean, if you take a break in fact, I was reading from this guy, Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield recommends that your week needs to have 3 categories of days. You need to have days when you focus on your craft, days when you sharpen your craft. These are days when you read books or things that, just increase your creativity, and also days when you rest. He recommends days when midnight to midnight, you're not thinking about your business, your career, or your profession. And when you think about it, even years, you need to have, in your whole year, you need to take a break. A couple of days, some of us, when we take leave, we get another job. That's not healthy.
True.
That's not healthy. You can't be on leave and still working. I mean, it beats the whole purpose of a leave. It beats the whole purpose of a leave. So I saw the importance of rest. And through the rest, ideas came to me. Ideas like I started a Facebook series called Wisdom for Living.
Yeah.
And I put together 12 episodes, 12 complete episodes. And I got a following from that. Some people are still requesting me to do those things. And I did it for free. It came from a place of rest. And the hustle teaches you everything has to be commercial. When you're hustling, everything you do has to result in money. But life is not necessarily commercial. There's a lot of things that we do that are not earning you money, but are making a difference in people's life. And the paradox is that when you get into those kind of things, those are the things that will bring you real money, because they'll bring you real influence and they'll take you to a global stage. So first I said important things, family. Second, rest. I think those two are big things for me in the pandemic. Family, keeping the important things important. And even now that we are now fading out of the pandemic, I still want to spend more time with my family. I want to spend more time with my friends and to call them, to check on them, to be there for them, to be there for them. And secondly, even when I get a lot of jobs and business and what, I want to have days and seasons when even if I'm called for a job, I say, I'm sorry, I'm on a break, or I'm sorry, I'm on vacation. I'm going to respond to this in April. If you can wait, that's great. If you can't wait, then I'm also okay with that. And that's the other thing, being at a place where you're okay with being okay. Sometimes you're so busy and you think that, I can't say no, this is business, this is a client. I've learned that being on a break, having a free day is also business. So if someone calls me and say, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of something right now, I can't respond to that, but allow me to respond to that tomorrow. And that time I'm just sleeping or watching a movie. It's important to rest. And the world can wait, because when you die, the world will move on.
True.
So you also need to put the world at bay, because the world only wants to take from you. So, and yeah, take a break, and the world will not, sometimes we feel that the world will stop because you're not sending emails and attending meetings and doing proposals. It won't. So just relax, watch a movie. You just might be more creative when you come back tomorrow. Back to you, Joshua.
Wow, wow, wow. Those were important nuggets. Number one, the importance of the important things. Understanding that, figuring out what is important in your life. And number two, taking rest, because the world will move on when you have stopped breathing. And there are a couple of messages on chats of people that are actually agreeing with you. There's a wonderful friend of ours, Martha. We will identify with this famous name, David Okeyo. He says that family is a place of refuge than elsewhere. And he says that, I earlier asked again what lesson we learned, and he said that, you know what, you can't be ready enough in this life. And it's so true. The pandemic, if you've not learned anything, I think this is definitely a lesson we all have learned, that you will never be prepared for everything in life. And now he agrees with you, Eric, to say that that family is a place of refuge that elsewhere. So you better prioritize your family. And he says to agree with your second point, he says that we don't know how to rest, not until we are arrested or cause unrest. And that's extremely true. It's wise for us not to wait for situations to arrest us. And he goes on to say, great insights, Eric. Says being free in Africa is termed as laziness. How funny, isn't it? And it's so true, because when you're not busy resting, when you're not busy being busy about whatever it is, then you are lazy. And sometimes you need that break to be able to process. A good example is what you shared with us. Now, Martha, you've been nodding, you've been smiling, you've been somehow taking in this. What is your story? Any lessons you would say? For me, these were key lessons that I learned in this pandemic, apart from the prior lessons that you shared with us.
I think, first of all, let me say, Eric, I did not, and I've been pleasantly surprised. I did not expect to hear this from an African man. It's just not the way you guys are wired, you know? It's the hustle and bustle, and it's just, you know, it's so glorified, and it's very overrated. And I've had friends deal with burnout, you know? I've had friends dealing with depression as a result of burnout. And so it's not a small thing. It's actually a big pandemic out there, but we're not really discussing it. So I love that you've pointed that out. And there's a lot of young men and women who are on the treadmill every day, feel like they need to prove themselves constantly, working. And again, one of my good friends often tells me, Martha, if you died tomorrow, your boss will replace you. It's nothing personal, just the way the world works. You know, you cannot assume that, you know, you are holding back you're doing such, you know, even if you're doing your absolute best, they will always find a replacement for you. So what a way to rein that in. What a way to rein that in. I love that you know, Eric started with that and shared his experience. And I want to build on that. I want to build on what he said and say my experience was one, first of all, one of the things that I heard from one of my mentors, he doesn't know he's my mentor, but somehow he's mentoring my discipline. So I actually asked him one time, and I asked him, so what is the one thing that you feel is consistent across, you know, great achievers, people who are like you, who have accomplished a great deal of things in their lifetime? What do you think is consistent? And he said, self-conscious or self-awareness. Self-awareness. Knowing your energy levels, managing them, being aware of who you are, your weaknesses, your strengths, and being able to channel that in a way that you are of service to people around you. And why do I say that is relevant for the pandemic? My story is such that because of the whole anxiety, I lost track of who I was. I forgot who I was. And I became, I would say, I started to look at myself in light of my weaknesses. And that put my confidence down. It affected my ability to actually deliver work. But when I had to talk to people, like Eric said, when I had to talk to people who were my moral support, they were able to get me back to the space where this is who you are. Yes, you have weaknesses, but you also have strengths. What are those strengths? And you work in those. And it's not an easy process. There is constant reminders of this is how weak you are. This is where you fall short. But when you see yourself in one light and fail to see yourself in the light of your strength and things that you're good at, you lose track of everything. You become demoralized and you lose track of where you're going. And so self-awareness is a great part. And I would say I've come a long way. When I got to understand myself, I knew where the gaps were. And I've not arrived by any means. I've not arrived, but I'm somewhere. And what that has meant, it has translated into me being able to know the things that I can do, where my energy levels are at, right? And where I'm able to be my absolute, and where I need work, right? And so I'm able to be honest with my boss and say, look, I need rest. And if you want me to work beyond the work hours, I'm not sure I can do that. So this is what I can do. Being honest with yourself and others also helps. And the second thing for me, I would say, was empathy. And why do I say this? The pandemic was a very emotionally gut-wrenching experience for everyone across the board. It was for parents, for even young adults, for everyone. Everybody was dealing with something, right? And so when you dealt with a colleague who was being difficult, when you dealt with a friend who was acting strange, when you dealt with people that were acting out for some reason, it was not as easily seen, but people were struggling with a lot. And so it taught me that when you actually see past somebody's strange behavior and you're able to actually get to ask, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? How is life? Asking the real questions and not just the shallow questions. I like that Eric talked about friendship. When I was growing up, we had this thing about leadership is a lonely journey. Leadership is like you don't have real friends, or you don't need friends, you're by yourself. I choose to believe that's not true. I actually think the greatest leaders have the greatest community. They have the greatest support system. These are people who are anchored, right? And when you have a good friendship, they don't just ask you, hi, how are you, and go away. They're going to ask the hard questions. They're going to ask the hard questions. How are you really doing? How are you doing in this sphere? And that's where the vulnerability comes out. You're like, look, I try to keep it together for the week, but I'm really done. I'm really stressed. I have no way of managing this. Help me. Or how would you deal with this? And as a leader, for me, that meant when you talk to a friend, when you talk to a colleague, when you talk to somebody who you're working with, or not even working with, somebody you ask the hard question. You're like, hey, how are you really doing? And I know, interesting, Joshua and I serve on the same team. I think prior to him joining, we had a team of also volunteers who we decided as part of our cell group that we were going to reach out to people and ask them, that they were part of the youth cell at my church, CLA, and ask them, hi, how are you? And my goodness, the things we heard, my heart broke. One of the people I reached out to told me, look, I'm really struggling because I've not lost my job, but all my friends have. And I don't know how to manage that relationship or how to console them and not fear for losing my job as well. Like I'm struggling with the same anxiety, right? And we reached out to somebody else who said, I'm struggling to pray because I can't rationalize what's happening around the world, you know? And so many people processing a lot of things. So as a leader, for me, it meant being empathetic and knowing that maybe somebody's not acting out. Maybe they're acting that way because they're dealing with frustration that they can't really translate. And I know that empathy is one of those things that requires you to look outside of yourself. It requires selflessness. And you cannot be able to be empathetic if you're not selfless, if you're not looking outside of yourself. If you're so focused on yourself, you obviously have things to keep you there. But when you are empathetic, you look outside of yourself and you help other people. And that's what leadership is. It's service. I mean, I don't understand models where leadership is kind of glorifying somebody at the top. It's service to other people. And it's a constant call to serve, to meet other people's needs, even before you meet yours. But yours are also important. But empathy requires that you look outside of yourself, you look beyond yourself to help other people. And so those are my two nuggets for this pandemic and what I learned.
Wow. Again, what a wonderful way to put it, Martha. You've talked about two amazing qualities of qualities in a leader. One being self-awareness, and the other one being empathy. And you know what? The two are interconnected. It's difficult for you to be able to empathize if you don't have a firm ground where you stand of self-awareness. There is actually an interesting quote that self-awareness, the first chapter in the book of leadership. And Plato said that self-awareness is the beginning of all wisdom. Well, some of us will protest, and we all know that as Christians, we know that the true wisdom comes from God and understanding, knowing God. But I think he was trying to put in a human perspective that when you are self-aware, then it's very easy for you to go over other hurdles, and you put it so well. And really, the last one for me, it embodies leadership. You did talk about leadership being service, and it's absolutely true. But in times like these, we have needed more empathy than ever before, because we have had to deal with effects. People have had to deal with situations they can't explain themselves, and you cannot even understand. And as a leader, it simply calls us to simply empathize, to say, look, I don't know what to do. I don't know, but I'm here. I want to listen. If I could do anything, I will do it. But most importantly, I'll give you my listening ear. And that's absolutely important for a leader, for anyone. And you know what? It's so true that all of us want to follow leaders that can empathize with us.
Yeah.
We want to know. You see, my mentor, just like you mentioned, my mentor told me that when people are going to follow you, they're asking two questions. Do you have their best interest at heart? And can they trust you? And in both cases, they're trying to see, are you empathizing with them? Do you put them first? Yeah. You know, and I feel that those are really powerful nuggets. When we add these to one, put the important things in their place. I like what Eric says, that he quotes the Bible, do not begin, and I paraphrase, do not begin to prepare for battlefield on the morning of the battlefield, of the battle itself, because you will be smashed into no existence, right? So it's important for us to prepare and make the most important. And secondly, prepare yourself to be to rest, because you know what? It's very interesting. The gadgets we have, the cars we drive, we have time for them to rest. And hardly do we have our own time to rest. We do service to this because the police runs after us. But no one, since we have no police to run after our bodies, there's no service that is rendered onto us, our bodies, to say, look, can I pause everything? And if there's anything I've learned from Eric, is that when I am resting, I'm actually doing business.
Yeah.
How incredible, right? How incredible that now I can actually do business by resting. Of course, not because it makes perfect sense to me now, because only when I have the strength and energy to do other things, then I can bring my best self to the job. And from you, Martha, important to take time to understand who you are, understand your strength, because you know what? People are always going to, or even that's how the world is. They're always going to find that negative thing about you. And as a young, and I say, I've seen this as a young man. If you don't know yourself as a young person, then there's so much around you that you're not perfect at. And that can easily drag you down, especially that it seems that everyone around you is perfect, especially with the current era. Everyone puts their best show and you just look miserable. But the moment you're comfortable in your own skin, understanding who you are, and understanding you're bringing even to your company, and there's something that I've also I learned like 2 years ago about my career is that there is value in what I'm bringing on the table. That's why they're hiring me. That's why they're paying me all this money. Otherwise, they wouldn't. And that builds my confidence to show up every morning to say, look, I am actually contributing something and I am going to try to do better. But you're not going to take that away from me because it's important. And you also mentioned something, Martha, that leadership is best when there's a great community around you. When you have people that are always genuinely interested in getting you to the right levels, then you can thrive. Then you can do everything with a little bit of an extra edge because you are not fighting alone. You know, a battle shared is a battle half won. So it's important, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, as we face life, as we go out there, let us be mindful. Let us take some rest. Let us make the right connection. Let's make the important. Let's make the right decisions and take and give the value that your friends deserve, that your valuable networks, your family does. Let us take time to do, they like to call it a soul search, or take time and pause and understand who you are. There are many ways to do this. You could do a psychometrics test. You can ask people. You can read books, but make sure that you discover a bit about yourself. And most importantly, empathize. Don't take things by the face value. You'd be shocked at how different things might look like when you dig a little deeper and ask the hard questions of how are you really, really doing. Now, my friends, time is not the best of our allies. We all know that. But I like to give you one opportunity to, give a parting shot. And Eric, because you my friend from Toastmasters, I'd like you to tell us a bit about Toastmasters. And Martha, if you're still part of the ISEC community, I'd like also you to tell us a bit about the ISEC community. And if you're in the alumni, we'd like to know a bit about ISEC so that if there's anyone that is here and is interested in finding a place where they can grow their leadership, practice their leadership, then they will either think about joining Toastmasters or maybe ISEC. And who knows, they might decide to say, look, this year is a year for me to grow. Let me go for the juggler and go for Toastmasters and ISEC. I would say good luck to you because that's a lot of learning. I'll go with you, Martha, first.
Joshua, very interesting. You say ISEC. Unfortunately, I've actually not been part of ISEC. I've only worked with them, but okay. I am a global shaper.
Let's hear about Global Shapers then.
The global community is a part of the World Economic Forum, and it's essentially young people within major cities who have basically have these incredible ideas. They have initiatives they want to start and support their communities. In Rwanda, we had a flagship project as it's Kumbit, which was an event. Unfortunately, as you know, what happened in 2020 with events, but we would bring together young people, policymakers, leaders, and discuss, poignant points or issues in our communities, and also work with our communities in order to make sure that our voices as young people are heard. And so the Global Shaper community has been in Kigali for close to 7 years, actually. Actually, no, more than that, more than 9 years, actually. It's been here for a while. Wow. And so if anybody's interested, I'm happy to share tips on how to join the Global Shapers community. We send out registrations every year and people apply to join. And I think for me, it's been a great opportunity to lead. Prior to leaving for my master's degree, I actually was the vice curator of the Kigali Hub or the Kigali chapter. Wow. And aside from the fact that I got to travel and see parts of the world, I also got to learn and become a better leader. So I love being part of it, and I strongly recommend for young people to join. I think we need more brilliant minds with brilliant ideas to build our community and make it more progressive and also, a great place to be. And so parting shots for leaders, I would say I was still kind of building my points around being empathetic, being self-aware. I think for me, self-awareness has meant the difference between, you know, it's been the how I've defined my confidence. It's improved my confidence levels. And what I would say is, it's not a you do it and be done with it sort of thing. You have to actually learn about yourself. You evolve, you grow, you change, and so you don't expect yourself to kind of be the same, same person, 5 years from now. You will have changed, and so learning about yourself, learning about your strengths, learning about how you're improving yourself on a day-to-day is actually very, very important. I'm happy through Joshua to suggest some very, very useful tools that have been useful to me. I'll be sharing them with him, and he can share them in the description of conversation. He's right, diagnostic tools are great, but also talking to people, talking to your friends, asking them, what do you think my strengths are? What do you think my weaknesses are? How do you suggest that I get better? And also being empathetic is knowing that to every conversation you have, there's a layer of something you don't know about that person. And it helps to be a good listener. It helps to lean in and be an ear that listens and doesn't judge, or does not, be quick to give solutions, because we're not really looking for solutions. People are looking for an ear. People they probably already have a solution. They're just dealing with heavy things and they just want to lay them down. And, like Eric is obviously going to say, rest is also very important. I actually have to take this particular piece of advice for myself because I've not been doing a great job at it. But I still think it's valuable advice, and I'm definitely going to take it. So that's it with me, Joshua. Thank you for the opportunity, by the way.
Thank you so much, Martha. Again, a wonderful audience, our wonderful viewers, friends out there. You've heard it. Do you want to be a global shepherd? Do you want to sharpen your leadership skills? Do you want to impact people around you, especially the young adults community and the community in which you are in? Global Shapers will be your place. And I'll make sure that I share some of the resources or links to if there's any of social media or anything into the description, that if you want to follow them up, and you can actually look down into the description, and you will find how to subscribe or how to be part of the Global Shapers. And again, you've heard it from Martha, the wonderful nuggets that she's shared with us. Again, thank you so much, Martha, for that. Over to my good friend, Eric. Tell us a bit about Toastmasters, and then you also give us your parting shots.
Thank you, Joshua. I can't believe it's time for the parting shots.
I know.
And what's interesting is that, Central Africa time is 1 hour behind East Africa time. So this show started at 7 p.m. CAT, which is 8 p.m. EAT. Yeah. And when I came, I've had a busy week and a busy weekend, and I had to run away from a function I was at, saying that, hey, I have a call that I need to connect into. And I was already tired. I was wondering, oh my God, this is such a late time to have a meeting. And what my fascination is, it's been such a place of refreshing. I feel refreshed. And sometimes you come here as a panelist, as a speaker, but I've learned that, you engage in anything in life as a learner. You come in to soak in whatever it has, and you come in with an open mind. And I feel very refreshed. I hope, I mean, if not for anything, I was here to just get some of the conversation that we've had. I like what Martha has spoken about, to do with empathy. And that's something that we need in the world. I mean, put in another word, it's care. Put in another word, it's love. And love makes the world go round.
It does.
So it reminds me of a quote by Theodore Roosevelt, one of the America's former presidents, that people don't care how much you know until they know that you care.
That you care about
them. Because sometimes as leaders, we show up, we have strategies, we have ideas, we have initiatives, we have strategic plans, but guys don't care. Guys just care. Guys just care if you care about them, and people will connect with the strategies, the plans, and all those if they feel that there's something in them. There's something there for them, and I think it's a good reminder for us as leaders to put people before plans, to put people before strategies, to put people before interventions and what have you. So I like that. And I like also, Joshua, what you spoke about, that even our cars and phones rest. You know, that you look at your phone and you think, wow, the bars are going low. I need to connect this. You know, you're connecting it to recharge. But at what point in your day do you recharge? You know, some of us even sleep for 3 hours or 4 hours. So I think it's a reminder that if mechanical things need rest and recharge, how much more
we need
rest and recharge. So about Toastmasters, I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to speak about Toastmasters. I've taken many courses, I've been in many workshops, I've been in many seminars, but I've been to few that have had a transformational effect on my life. Toastmasters has. Toastmasters is a global leadership and communication club. It's not a university, it's not a college, it's a club. It happens within peers. But you come and you meet people just like you who are trying to be better communicators and leaders. And guys offer you feedback to let you know about, you know, if you deliver a speech, guys tell you, this is what I liked about your speech. In other words, these are your strengths. Guys also tell you that these are the opportunities you have to be a better speaker. And you know, the thing about being a young person in this age is that, you know, yes, we can. There's so much, you know, you need to believe in yourself and go for it. And sometimes you go for it and very few people, I mean, you get to a place that very few people are afraid to tell you that you're doing badly. That's like really pathetic, you know, and you bulldoze through life because you think that I have a voice, I have an opportunity, I have a chance, somebody needs to listen to me. And you become so aggressive that you don't get honest people to tell you, yes, you're awesome, you're amazing in this way, but you also have opportunities to grow. And that's what Toastmasters does for you. You get real people who give you real feedback that can help you grow. I think it's Bill Gates who says that we all need feedback. That's how we grow. And if there's something you get from Toastmasters, is feedback. And yes, you can, but you probably can do more if somebody was honest in telling you what areas that you need to improve. So I recommend for any young person, even older people, join Toastmasters, because wherever you find yourself, whether you're a wife, a husband, a brother, a community leader, a politician, a pastor, all those areas are areas of influence. And the more sharpened your edge is, especially your communication and leadership skills, the more benefit you will bring to your community. And Toastmasters gives you the tools and the skills that will help you influence your community. And the other thing I like about Toastmasters is the idea is not to make everybody speak like Obama. You know, the idea is just to give you the tools so that you can speak like you. You know, just be yourself and influence people by being the best self. And I think that's great. It's empowering, because if we are all supposed to be like Obama, that would be depressing, because some of those people have such high benchmarks. But if I'm just supposed to be the best version of Eric, that's empowering, because I can be better than what I was yesterday. And that's really what Toastmasters is about. Go to www.toastmasters.org. There's probably a club in your city, because there's Toastmasters clubs in just about 350 cities around the world. Or is it 16? There's 16,000 clubs around the world in about 145 countries, and we are trying to get it everywhere. So if there's no Toastmasters in your city, as a division director, I can make sure it gets there. Wow. If you have 20 people who want to be Toastmasters, we're going to make it happen. We'll bring it to you somehow. At least if you're in Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, or Ethiopia, we'll make it happen. If you think that there's a bunch of guys who can be better leaders and communicators, we can bring Toastmasters to you. My parting shot is, as a leader, I want to talk about the cross effect. You know, a cross has a vertical axis or a horizontal axis, and we all need to be connected vertically to people we look up to. I think one of the follies of youth is thinking that you can't make it despite and irrespective of anything. But there's guys who've been there who know a thing or two that we need to learn from. You know, they may not have been great with on Twitter and Facebook, but they know some things about life that we don't know. These are people who've been there ahead of us, and it's always good to reach out to find somebody who we can call a mentor or a coach and connect with those people and make effort. I know that sometimes it's hard to get a mentor, but I mean, come and speak. Say, hey, Eric, I saw you on this event, and I just wanted to have an online conversation with you. I mean, most people are happy to have conversations. Then secondly, in the cross, somebody that you can give back to. You can't always be taking. If you take, even a river will become a dam if it just takes.
Wow.
Fresh river receives and gives. So if you don't give, you'll become a salt lake and you'll be poisoned. You'll kill all the fish inside and all the living things inside. So don't just take from people, also give. And we all can give to somebody. You can't find a primary school that you can give to, a high school you can give to, a church you can give to, a hospital you can give to. There's always somebody you can give to. And don't forget the horizontal axis. Find friends and family who are not intimidated by your superstardom. You know, guys who just know you as Martha or Josh. You know, guys who don't know you as this superstar consultant and business person. And you know, guys who just know you as, this little girl called Martha, my old friend Martha, you know. Guys who you can talk to and say, hey, man, things are thick. So look for those guys, because you need people who act as valves, people who can help you remove pressure, because your mentees are looking up to you. Your mentors, I need somebody who has their life together, but your friends just are looking for the boy or girl they knew. So connect, and don't forget your family, because on your deathbed, your clients and your mentors and your mentees might not be there, but your family are most likely the guys who will be there. And you don't prepare for battle on the day of war. So it's easy to have family, but it's another thing to make them friends. And friendship is an investment. It's like putting money in the bank. You can only withdraw if you invest it. Thank you, Joshua. I'm so refreshed. I'm so happy that I came here. It's made my notes, and I think it's the best decision I made today. Thank you. It's good to meet you, Martha, and I hope you can connect outside of this call. Back to you, Joshua.
Most definitely. I've loved being a part of this. Thank you so much, Joshua, for this amazing, amazing platform that you've created for young people, for people who get to learn. I mean, what are the chances of Martha and Eric meeting? He's in Kenya. I'm here. How are we supposed to meet if we don't have people like you? I mean, this is amazing. So thank you so much for the incredible work you're doing, Joshua.
Thank you so much. You both have been a fantastic force to reckon, and having the courage to even tackle the topic that we had tonight was, a significant signature of what both of you are. And thank you so much. But before we actually can officially bid farewell, we have to appreciate a few of our friends that are later on joined. We have Peter Ruahiji says family and friends make the world enjoyable. I think this is trying to agree with what we earlier on talked about, especially Eric. And then we have Bagabo Foster official. He's saying that I'm very glad to be part of Toastmasters once again. I think you're trying to say that because we are two Toastmasters here, therefore we have just decided to make it a Toastmasters environment. But anyway, very happy to have you, Foster. And you went on to say, keep it up, Joshua. All right, thank you so much. We have, I think, Gakur Ronald trying to say something about what we are talking about, getting and receiving feedback. And you say that feedback is good, but at some point we need to understand when, how, and whom should we give either positive or negative feedback. I think this speaks into having the cross and also understanding the people that you have. Are they acquaintances, as you earlier mentioned, and therefore they might not be interested in genuine feedback, or they just want to hear about all these other surface information? Or are they actually your core people who really can take the feedback you give them so that they can grow? And of course, in return, they'll do the same for you. And then finally, you say that you like what you hear, Gakur Ronald. My friends, it's been a fantastic opportunity to be here and talk to you about the theme that we had that begged to ask the question, can we learn any leadership lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic? And boy, have we learned a few things from what a wonderful guest learned in the entire journey going through this pandemic, having learned that it's important to rest, that it's important to prepare for battlefield way ahead, and therefore make the important important. And take time to understand who you truly are, because out of your self-awareness, you will build courage, you will build confidence to even work on the areas where you're struggling in. And most importantly, and definitely key, that we should try our best to give out empathy, to be empathetic. And Eric dared to say that another word for empathy could actually mean love. And we all know what love does. Doesn't it turn the world around? Yes, it does. And therefore, by simply remembering all these, let us look at this pandemic that we have had as also another opportunity for us to learn. And we have learned so much. And I want to thank you so much. Again, to all of you that have taken this journey, if you're new here, please, you hit the subscribe button so that you do not miss any of our sessions. If you're new here, continue to share the wonderful information. Again, we will share some resources in the description so that you can actually reach out to the Global Shapers. We have got a chance to be part of the Global Shapers. And of course, the Toastmasters community. The division director himself promised that you have 20 members and you have Toastmasters. So what are you waiting for? Join the Global Shapers and join Toastmasters and start to develop your leadership skills. Again, this has been wonderful. It's been wonderful to have you at the Speaker's Pulse, and we always will wait to hear from you. And of course, until the next fortnight, until the next 2 weeks, take good care, and may the Lord really bless you. Have a wonderful night and a great week ahead.